Good evening. It is 6:05. Pardon our delinquency. I will call us to order. This is our regularly scheduled city council meeting, August 13th, 2024. We do have a quorum, so I'll again call us to order. Our invocation tonight will be given by Reverend Robert Simpson. He's pastor of Bell Chapel Baptist Church, followed by our pledges. So, Brother Simpson, if you'll come and lead us in prayer, and then we'll all lead us in the pledges. If you want to come to the podium, that'd be great. That way we can hear it. Thank you.
Let's pray.
Thank you.
God in heaven, Lord, we thank you for who you are. Father, we thank you that you love us like you do, that, God, we can say that we live in the greatest nation in the world, God, that we can say that we live in a community like Jacksonville, Texas, Lord, with leaders like the ones that you've put before us, God. We thank you for the mayor that we have in this council, these men and women, Lord. We pray that you would guide their steps, Lord, that you would give them wisdom as they lead. Father, that every step, every direction that they take our community in, Lord, it would be pleasing to you. We thank you for the character and the integrity that is represented here today. Father, we pray for them, that you would be with them, Lord, as they make difficult decisions, Lord, as they see the future and your plans for our community, for our city. And God, the difficult times and the difficult situations, Lord, would you give them the means, the wisdom, and the resources to work through those things. God, we thank you. We ask that you would bless them, Lord, that you would bless them indeed, Father, that your face would shine upon them and our community. And God, you would be gracious to us, Lord, and bring us peace, God. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Join me in the pledges first of the American flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Our first item is a special presentation, Business of the Month, presented by JEDCO President Shane Pace. If you'll come forward.
Thank you, Mayor, Council members.
Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity tonight. We are recognizing All Smiles this month. I want to thank those guys for being here. If you wouldn't mind coming up, I'm just going to say a couple of words. We have Dr. Folden, Dr. Westbrook, and Dr. Stocks. I guess Dr. Folden recently retired. You can probably guess which one is Dr. Folden. He's not in his scrubs today. Congratulations. They've been serving the community for over 40 years, or they just celebrated 40 years, so now they're moving into their 41st year. And they've done a lot of great things over those years. They hosted 5K runs, gave the contributions back to the community. They've done free dental work for folks around Thanksgiving time, and so clearly been an integral part of Jacksonville. We just want to thank you guys for your commitment. Thank you for all the hard work and the service that you provide. And just want to recognize you tonight and say thank you. You want me to go share?
He did? Yeah. I wonder if he lost any windows this weekend. The luau.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. See y'all. Good to see you.
Yeah, you guys wear drops and shirts. Thank you so much. I don't know where you guys work my teeth, but I can't recognize you because you don't have your mask on. A little bit.
For the hometown folks, I think you know this factoid, but for those that maybe don't know this, Dr. Folden is the older big brother of Councilwoman Mindy Gallup.
Yes, I am.
So I know she's proud of her brother.
Emphasis on the older.
And his birthday's the same day as mine.
Yeah.
All right.
That's pretty cool.
Number 6, citizens participation. This is where we set aside some time to hear concerns from our citizens. Did we get any?
No, sir.
No turns? Okay. Nothing there. Item number 7 is our consent agenda. Items under our consent agenda require little or no deliberations by the council. They're generally housekeeping. They're minutes, approval of the jingle jog route, approval of street closure for the trunk and treat, and a street closure for National Night Out. So I'll entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
Mayor, I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as written.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Mindy Gallup,
Second.
second by Councilwoman Letitia Horace. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. We do not have any action out of executive session. Our quarterly financial.
Do you
Huh?
Do you not have any action?
Do you want to extend the
Oh,
contract?
yes, we do. Yeah, we do. That's right. Sorry about that. Well, yeah. Do we need that in a motion?
Yes, sir.
Oh, do you have a motion? Mrs. Motion?
You didn't give me
I'll make a motion, I'll make a
Okay,
motion
we have
that
a motion.
we extend our city manager's contract a year.
Okay, very good. We have a motion
A second.
and a second by Councilman Rob Goen. Now, is there any discussion? Sorry about that.
Man.
So sorry, we
I was
didn't have
really
you
only
slipped out.
joking.
I thought that was just an executive thing. Okay, we're gonna extend their contract. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion does carry.
You know, that was really only a joke. I said.
Right? Yeah.
Sorry about that.
You guys been quick.
Yeah. Now, quarterly financial report is presented by Finance Director Roxana Briley. Pardon me.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council members. I'm pleased to provide you a comprehensive update on our financial performance for the third quarter of this fiscal year. We'll be reviewing the key highlights, including revenue and expenditure trends, as well as progress on some of our major projects. The third quarter of the fiscal year 24 budget year concluded on June 30th, representing the 9th period of the fiscal year. Accordingly, the year-to-date percentage for budgetary comparison is 75%. Total combined revenue across all funds amounted to $22.9 million, reaching 72.2% of the annual budget, slightly below expectations. Fiscal year 24 revenue saw a decline of $1.7 million, or 6.9% compared to fiscal year 23. The primary factors contributing to this decrease include the prior year's $1.1 million from the lake lot sales, a planned reduction in interfund transfers, and lower grant revenue and no capital vehicle sales. As far as expenditures go, combined for all funds, total of $21.7 million, falling below both the revenue and received and the budgeted expectations at 54.9% of the budget. Fiscal year 24 expenditures increased by $1.3 million, or 6.8% compared to last fiscal year, driven by the bond-funded street projects, the Civic Center expenditures, and increased personnel costs. So I want to do a little overview of some of our top revenue sources and the trends. Property tax receipts totaled $6.3 million, representing 96% of collections and a 5.7% increase over the previous fiscal year. Sales tax at June 30th, $2.4 million in sales tax revenue was collected, which is about $108,000 less than our projection and $85,999 lower than the previous year. However, last week we received the largest June allocation that we've ever received from the comptroller. It was $107,000 greater than last year, and then that pushed our collections for the first time this fiscal year above the prior year. So I'm hopeful that we're going to meet budget, maybe even exceed it in sales tax by the end of the year. Water and sewer revenue, yes.
I'm sorry, can I just ask, do we know what drove that higher sales tax number? Do we know?
We don't see the report yet, but we do have a tool where we can see more details, but those have to be discussed in private.
That's a ZAC tax thing.
Okay.
So water and sewer revenues amounted to $2.5 million, falling short of year-to-date projections by about $341,000. And reflecting a 1.6% decline compared to last fiscal year. In June, we billed out about 72.6 million gallons of water, which was a 12.7% decrease from last year. Year to date, we billed out over 572 million gallons, which is about 88% of last year's total. Sewer charges totaled 2.2 million, which is about 230,000 below our projection. However, billing was increased by 20%, or about $376,000 compared to last fiscal year. Sanitation fees are right on the money at about $1.9 million, just slightly below at 74.8%, but 6.2% higher than last year. Ambulance fee revenue collections are at 70.9% of the budget, slightly below the 75% mark, but mainly probably because I suggested a $220,000 budget adjustment to increase the revenue. So if that would have stayed at its original budget number, we would be above 75% instead of below. And receipts have grown by 76,000 or 12.7% compared to last fiscal year. Our hotel motel occupancy tax revenue, including our venue tax, reached $292,000 or just over 75% of the budget, marking a 24% increase over the previous year. The significant increase is largely attributed to the venue tax, which wasn't implemented until February of 2023. Municipal court revenue reached $397,000, falling short of projections. However, it does represent a 4.3% increase over the previous fiscal year. And we're going to switch gears to some of our major expenses. Number one being our personnel. The budget's at $11.2 million, and it represents 28.4% of the total budget for expenditures. This budget included a 3% cost of living adjustment for all employees, and then step increases for sworn police and firefighters. Year to date, 72% of the personnel budget has been spent, reflecting an increase of about $660,000 or 8.8% over last year. We'll talk about some of our bond projects. The first one being the sanitary sewer system improvements. About $646,000 has been expended to date. Planning and environmental phases are nearing completion, with design and construction expected to begin next fiscal year. We have our streets projects, also funded by certificates of obligation. $1.3 million has been spent on core testing, crack sealing, and street reconstruction. ARPA grant revenue funded the engineering services pieces of the project, and then our upcoming projects include the HSIP, street paving, and Canada Street. Then for the Jackson, we issued tax anticipation notes, funded $1.5 million transformation of the former Cherokee Ranch Clubhouse into our new Civic Center, which is now complete and operational. We have several parks projects. They were funded by ARPA and Texas Parks and Wildlife grants, along with sale of the lake lots formerly known as Kiwanis Park. Some updates: the Buckner Park project is complete. Hazel Tilton is under review due to budgetary concerns. Major renovations have been ongoing at Lincoln Park with additional improvements planned. And then construction for the Lake Jacksonville Boating Access Concession Park looks like it's really, really going to happen. I'm so excited about that. But should take place after our summer lake season. This is our fund balance. We've increased fund balance by about $1.2 million by the end of the third quarter. And I lost the presentation for some reason. Our cash and investments decreased by $2.1 million from the last quarter. And you might say, how can our fund balance increase and our cash decrease? Well, that's because we're spending money that's on the balance sheet, revenue that we've been holding for the grants and the bond projects. Our portfolio yielded an average of 5.077%, which is slightly below our 8-week T-bill benchmark of 5.39%. And our weighted average maturity was 79 days. Most of our portfolio remains highly liquid, held in bank accounts and local government investment pools, ensuring that we have access to most of our portfolio within 24 hours. And that's all I have.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Roxanne.
You bet.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Matt, do you want to bump to 17 and get Lauren and her representative out of here?
Oh, that'd be great, yeah. Yeah, let's scoot to, item number 17, just,
You want to eat dinner, don't you?
yeah, exactly. Item number 17 is to discuss and consider possible action approving the Foster and 5K route November the 2nd, 2024. Mr. James, you wanna
Yeah,
us a
Mayor,
little bit
City
about that?
Council Lauren Arrington is the applicant here, and she's here this evening. It looks like she may have some representatives with her. We're having TV issues, but the route was on the screen here. Generally, we handle these types of road closures or rolling road closures under your consent agenda, but this being a new event, we just figured we'd put it as a standalone item. It would just be a rolling road closure with the assistance of some off-duty police officers. It's a similar route to Jingle Jog, however, it saves us by not having to cross Highway 79, so it's even easier to probably facilitate. And it does appear to be supporting fostering bridges, is that accurate? Okay, good deal.
Great. Looks like it starts at Cookfield and winds its way around that area and ends back up at Cookfield. I will entertain a motion to approve that road closure.
I'll make a motion to approve that route and road closure.
We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Tim McRae,
Second.
second by Councilwoman Mindy Gallup. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carried. And believe it or not, I've signed up for that race. So, oh, she's got some brochures? Yeah.
If you don't mind.
No, that's great,
Please.
yeah.
Yeah, I just brought some flyers if y'all
Okay,
just wanna
great.
look. There's a QR code. We have a big sponsor already.
Thank you.
And we're still looking for sponsors, but it should be a great race. If you're a runner, it's flat, it's cold, starts and ends at the high school, should be a good race.
Great, thank you, Lauren. Appreciate it. Super. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, we'll go back to 10.
That'd be great. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, so we're gonna go back to item number 10 is to discuss and consider with possible action making an appointment to the Lake Advisory Board. Mr. James?
Yes, Mayor, City Council, I apologize that we're still having TV issues for the audience, but it's working on our side, so.
Okay.
Just wanted to call a couple things to your attention before you take action on this evening. There are currently 6 citizen members to this committee, and then there's 2 ex officio members, so that's a total of 8. That leaves the 1 vacancy up to the total of 9 members. So you see the names of Mr. Steve Hazelwood, Barry Autry, Robert Sadler, Nathan Jones, and then Vicky Lau and Janet Stanovich. You see their membership start date and then when their terms expire. They're 3-year terms. And in May of 2021, the council authorized the passage of ordinance 1599-A. That extended the board from 7 members to 9 members. So in addition to the 6 that are on the screen, the 2 ex officio members are myself by title and our building official, or the representatives that I choose to fulfill those roles. The ex officio members are voting members pursuant to ordinance 1599 alpha. And then you see that you have the 7 members of whom shall be Lake Jacksonville lot leasees or property owners and should be city residents. And they do meet monthly. I'll be honest with you, their current practice has not been monthly. That may be something we ask the council to consider in the future. I think it would probably even be the Lake Advisory Board's preference that they don't quite meet monthly and just maybe meet as needed or quarterly or something along those lines. And you see that their powers include just in an advisory capacity to make recommendations to the city council, but there is no requirement for items related to the lake to go before the Lake Advisory Board prior to city council.
Okay. And you mentioned that the ordinance that we passed suggests that they should be city.
Yeah, I underline that because
Yeah.
that was a change made
Right.
in the May 2021 ordinance, and I went over to Brett and asked him about that because it's not language I see many times in ordinances. Usually it's shall or
Right.
may. Should caught me a little off guard, so I asked for some clarification there.
But city residents would be a resident inside the city limits.
Correct.
Is that what
About
they-
28% of the lots around the lake are inside the city
Are you
limits.
saying that is required or just recommended?
So should, if you see should or may in a piece of legislation, it means that,
Highly encouraged.
right, exactly, that it's very, very much encouraged, but it's not an absolute requirement. The word shall makes it an imperative, a
I see.
requirement.
Okay.
So, it's, this appointment is a council appointment, it's not a mayoral appointment. So I guess at this time, I will open the floor for nominations to be presented in front of the council. If you have somebody that you want to nominate, and then we will discuss them and try to come up with the best candidate, if you have one.
Mayor, I'd like to nominate Dr. Kenya Edom
Okay? All right.
for the Lake Advisory Board. She currently lives with her husband out at Lake Jacksonville. They are not on the city side, they are on the county side.
Okay.
But she is a very involved member of the community. She is an active participant with the Fred Douglass Community Development Corporation. As their marketing director, she has been involved with the renovations that we've been doing there with Lincoln Park and been very instrumental in getting those underway and doing a lot of the fundraising that's been involved there. And so she is very eager to stay involved and be involved with all things going on in Jacksonville. Her family has a long history here in Jacksonville, and so she is embedded in this community. She's a family practitioner at UT Health, and so she is just highly engaged.
Okay, great. All right, we have one. I'd like to nominate Russ Gideon. Of course, he works for Austin Bank. He lives at the lake. He does live on the city side of the lake. I think he's lived out there for quite some time. For me, if I was gonna make some recommendations based on what's going on at the lake, I would want somebody, just my personal opinion, that has lived out there for quite some time, that knows the lake, that knows the nuances of the good and the bad, what needs to be improved, and I think Russ would probably fit that. And I called him and asked would he be willing to serve it. He said he would. So that's my nomination. Russ Gideon. Anybody else?
We looking for one person or two?
One.
One currently.
One currently. Any other nominations?
I don't have any.
Nothing. Okay.
I guess I should add, Dr. Elam is also eager to serve, so I did talk to her about
Oh,
her
good.
nomination.
Okay. Okay. All right, so, I guess our nominations will cease. Any more discussion or questions about the two nominees that anybody might have? Qualifications? Nothing? Okay, Counselor, what do we do?
You can call for a motion if you'd like.
Okay, well, okay. I think I do like that.
Okay.
So I will entertain a motion from the council on nominating or selecting one of the two as our appointee.
Brett, I'm not, well, would we not vote on the two, or how would you propose a motion?
Sure, you could do either of two ways of handling something like that when you have multiple nominees for one slot. And one way is to call for a motion, and if somebody has a motion to approve one of the two, and that obtains enough of the votes, which would be a majority, 3, then that would have that person be it selected. Or if there was a motion and it didn't have enough, then you can call for another motion for the other one. Or you could just have a vote and see if there's a majority for one of the two.
Using those two?
Right,
And we just by a show of hands vote for
Yeah,
whichever?
yeah, right,
I
right.
think that seems like the fairest way to me. I don't know, but,
Sure, that's right.
if you want, I'll attempt to make that motion. Correct me if I get it wrong. Okay, Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion that we have a council vote over these two nominees.
Okay. Okay.
Is that okay?
We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Tim McRae to vote.
Right.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second on that motion by Councilwoman Mindy Gallup. So, I guess,
You could have a vote on that motion.
okay, so all in favor on that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. So now I guess we do the vote.
Yeah,
Correct?
I guess the best way to do that would maybe a roll call.
A roll call?
Oh, no, don't do that.
Can we just show of hands?
Right
Can we
on
just
piece
do
of
it?
paper,
Okay,
pass
you
it to
could do
Randy.
a show of hands.
Just do a show of
Yeah,
hands.
show of hands is fine. That'll work too.
Okay.
Let's put some more on the spot.
Okay, and I'll just take them in order. The first one was Dr. Edom, so, for those that wanna place her in this capacity on the Lake Advisory Board, show of hands. Two,
I'll go with,
three?
yeah.
Okay, we got three for Dr. Edom. Those for Russ Gideon, we have two, so the threes have it. So our new person, a member of the Lake Advisory Board is Dr. Edom. So
Good deal.
I think she'll do a great job, I really do.
Thank you.
Two good applicants. We couldn't have
Yeah,
gone
very
wrong.
too, yeah, it's kinda awkward, but we got through it, so.
It's democracy at work.
Yeah, that's right, democracy at work. is-
Democracy at work.
Very good, thank you for your participation in that exercise.
Yes.
Sure.
Item number 11 is to discuss and consider action proposing a tax rate and setting September 10th, 2024 at 6 p.m. as the date and time to hold a public hearing on the proposed tax rate and budget.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I think prior to asking you to do a roll call vote on this and consider the tax rate, it'd be beneficial to kind of go through a little bit of an
Yes.
abbreviated version of the budget. We
Okay.
appreciate your time. You spent a lot of time with us last Thursday in the budget workshop.
Right.
And so I wanted to take a little time explaining the budget to the citizenry, and we'll be happy to answer questions. Of course, the actual approval of the budget and the tax rate do not occur until September, so this is all a little bit preliminary still, but we're in a good way. So Unity in Action is the title of this year's budget, and as we believe collaboration leads to progress, many of the capital investments incorporated in the proposed budget and completed within the last 24 months are the fruits of this belief. And tonight is a presentation of a difficult budget and one that in many ways is designed around maintenance and long-term reinvestment as opposed to monumental operational change. Like many, if not most, of our peer cities, revenues are seemingly in stagnation and expenses continue to climb. The city is not immune to inflationary pressures and rising costs impacting our citizens. This is a budget that mirrors those of the households and citizens that we serve. While balanced, it's tight. This is a budget that seeks to absorb and not pass along the increasing costs of people, supplies, equipment, and facilities required for service delivery. As a staff, we've discussed the difficulties of preparing this budget along with the City Council and the concessions we've had to make. But we all understand the importance of reflecting and respecting the community we serve. Times are tough, and our goal is to meet needs, not create needs for our citizens. So with that, this is kind of the tip of the iceberg here and what created some of the challenges for us this year. What you see is our net taxable value. This is basically the value that our tax rate then gets applied to determine the levy. In 2023, you see it just over $1 billion. And then in 2024, you see it up just ever so slightly. As a whole, $13 million sounds like a lot to a household or a business budget, but as a whole for a city, it only resulted in a 1.31% increase in the levy. So at a 98.5% collection rate, you saw earlier in Ms. Briley's presentation, we were at about 96.2, I believe, percent collection rate year to date. We'll continue to see that trend up. We typically average north of 98.5, so that's slightly conservative. But if you apply the proposed rate of flat tax rate at 63,763 to the increased levy, you come up with an additional revenue to the city of $83,673, which pales in comparison to the increasing costs of public safety, equipment, and reinvestment. But we can make do, and we'll get to that in some upcoming slides. A little bit of analysis. It's hard to do this on the fly. These numbers are still pretty fresh from the appraisal district. We had transition from Mr. Lee Flowers to Jan Lowry down there at the appraisal district too. So we're kind of just learning how to work with one another. We're on a great footing and look forward to working with Miss Lowry and her staff, who's been very responsive. But you take a look at this table we put together, and it shows that we have the least significant increase in our taxable assessed value in the last decade. We didn't even take the time to go back beyond that, but I venture to guess that trend would continue, and we may be even looking at closer to 2 decades. So it's alarming in a lot of ways, but it's just reality, and we have to make plans to adapt. The bullet points below the table, what you see are some of the pressures that were at play. The legislature is basically on the hook for the first 2 there. They passed a 20% cap on non-homestead limitation. What that means is many of our citizens benefit from a homestead exemption on their homes. And that's capped at 10%. This new state law that's recently been enacted caps 20% value increases on commercial properties. And so what that ended up doing was put $23 million and a little bit of change, about $23.5 million in what I'm going to call the holding pattern, meaning that that value is there, but it's unrecognized. We're not able to apply our tax rate to it. And that would have yielded $150,000 of additional revenue given the flat tax rate. In addition, and even what harmed us more, was that in the last legislative session, there was also an exemption for manufacturing of medical or biomedical personal property. So that applies to both business personal property in the form of inventory and equipment. That one exemption in our city limits took off $39 million of valuation on the tax rolls, and you can just imagine how many businesses or rooftops that would be, and that resulted in over $250,000 of reduced revenue to the city. We also took a look at our commercial corridor. What we noted was that overall there's about there's probably more than this, but the appraisal district has to use several different techniques to effectively appraise properties throughout town. Of course, they can't come in front of everybody's house, take a picture, walk around and see what's going on. They've invested in some new technology to do that from an aerial standpoint, and they're sharpening their tools, if you will, but they still use largely what's called a mass appraisal approach. And so our city is basically carved up into what they call neighborhoods, and then they apply certain rules. And I don't want to speak too in depth because I don't want to misrepresent something that they're doing. But essentially the JCG1 neighborhood is going to be the properties along Highway 69 that have frontage. So of the 163 properties in that particular category, collectively they were down a value of $197,000. There were multiple properties down in value over $500,000. And so when you added them all up, you came up with a down of $197,613, or an average of $1,212 per property. We would have assumed a nominal 5% increase or so on that valuation of those 163 properties, which would have yielded an expected somewhere in the $40,000 range of revenue, but to the contrary, it led to no revenue. So just between those two top bullet points, which were legislative related, we lost 6% of our appraised value across the whole city. Then you add that third bullet point, there goes a little bit more. So again, we lost 442 between those three elements I just walked you through. We also did have some significant closings as it pertains to the tax rolls, and I don't want to minimize anybody being out of job, but I think the jobs that were lost between Plastic Holdings, Western Pulp, and Texas Basket Factory, Texas Workforce Commission stepped in, as did JEDCO, to facilitate placements. There were, I think, even some job fairs. I know that to be the fact with Western Pulp. So it was a really graceful exit. But while the people may have been absorbed, business personal property is one of the biggest drivers of property tax. When you go on the appraisal district map and just click on a parcel, you're just seeing the real property. There's the other accounts that are publicly available, but you have to search for them related to their equipment values. And so we lost tens of millions of dollars in equipment through those closings, and again, further reduced the net taxable assessed value. So here's what we're proposing tonight. We're proposing a flat tax rate, again, at the exactly what it is this year. Shows that it would bring in $6.492185 in terms of revenue to the city. That amount is spread between our maintenance and operations side, and then our interest and sinking to service debt that we currently have on the books, and again, bringing in that relatively nominal increase in terms of actual hard dollars to the city of $83,673. And it's helpful to realize that about every penny on the tax rate is worth just over $100,000. So we've been seeing this trend up. I think when I started as manager, it was around 88, then it was around 96, and now it's just north of 100. There's a couple different tax rates that we typically show to the council just to give you options and latitude as we walk you through the budget. Most commonly, those are the no new revenue tax rate. Simplest way of thinking about that is basically that's the rate that if applied to the same subset of properties in the prior year or the current year, because you're budgeting for the future year, if you will, would bring in no additional revenue. Of course, new value, new investment would be subject to the tax rate, and so you should generally see some uptick. Our understanding of that negative $202,000 has to do with the exemptions, because we can't go back and get the value of property that's now just mandated to be exempt. So we would actually see a pretty pretty sizable decrease in revenue should the council adopt the no new revenue tax rate of just over 60 cents. The voter approval rate kind of serves as the pre-approved rate. What that is that's a 3.5% increase over current tax levels. You do not have to go to the voters for that. It's a little bit of a misnomer in my mind. It's the maximum rate which the council can adopt without going to the polls and asking the voters to weigh in. You see that as would be up several pennies at just over 66 cents. And because of our community size, we also do have the lever to pull if the council should choose of the de minimis tax rate. You see that there at just over 70 cents. That would actually result in an increased revenue to the city of almost $750,000. That is only applicable to towns under 30,000 in population, and surprisingly, even though it's significantly higher than the voter approval tax rate, because of the way it's written in state law, it does not require voter approval either. I will say that rate and that tool, the de minimis tax rate, is probably going to be discussed in this upcoming legislative session. It's certainly under attack. But again, as we walk through these next slides, we've built the budget around a flat tax rate and the $83,000 of additional revenue. Here's your history at your ad valorem tax rate. The upper bar is your interest and sinking side, which is your lighter shade of red there, and then your darker bar is your M&O side. So relatively flat over the last, you have 10 years of actuals there, and then the proposed being flat. You have reduced the tax rate the last, I think, 3 tax years in a row. We held 69 flat for 3 years, and then we had 3 years of successive modest but decreases, the last year being the greatest, where we took about 4 cents off the tax rate. But again, proposing that flat tax rate this year. So here's where kind of the rubber meets the road. This is the impact to the average homestead. This is where it gets a little perplexing to me, if I'm quite candid with you. You see that the average home value, homestead value in Jacksonville went from 140 to 154, representing a 10% increase. But again, if you rewind a couple slides, we only saw on average across all properties an increase of 1.31%. So you can kind of see where that impact landed. So if we were to apply the flat tax rate that's proposed, you would see a tax bill moving from $893.03 to $987.06, which of course, because you're applying a flat tax rate, mirrors the increase in the average homestead increase. So that's again that 10.53%. So that's a $94.04 increase to our citizens, the average household, for all the services funded via the general fund, which is going to be police, fire and EMS, streets, the library and museum, administration, parks, animal control, code enforcement, development services, and so on. Any questions so far? So general fund overview, we are expected to add a little bit to the fund balance in this coming year. We do anticipate ending this proposed budget year at a 33% fund balance. Our fund balance policy is 20% of budgeted expenditures, so we're sitting on a healthy fund balance, but still the margins are really thin. But I'll walk you through a little bit of what the general fund looks like, and then we'll take a look at some of the special revenue and the utility fund. Here's a holistic view, very, very high level here of the revenue to the general fund. You see the largest size of or piece of the pie there is going to be taxes. That's primarily property taxes coupled with sales taxes. Next largest piece being fees and charges for service. That's going to be thanks to the work of our paramedics running our ambulances, sanitation fees for curbside waste and other bulky waste services that the city provides, and the lake lease fees. And then you see transfers in, franchise fees, which is for the use of the city's right-of-way, fines and forfeiture related to police operations, and then you see the breakout graph on the right-hand side of the screen there, which is expounding on your smaller 3% other category. So not a lot of time needed on that particular slide. Here's a look at sales tax collections. I'm getting a lot of glare, I'm sorry. We have seen generally sales tax trend up. I think last year in the same presentation I showed kind of a demonstration with the offset and the increase in sales taxes allowed the council to reduce the property tax rate. So we're seeing that. It's modest, but as Ms. Briley presented, our June receipts reported in August, there's a little bit of a lag there. We're the highest in the city's history, up $107,000 over the prior year's June. So if we can keep that trend going, we would be in a good way. And Councilwoman Horace, Ms. Briley was absolutely accurate. There is certain sensitivity and confidentiality required to the sharing of sales tax data. Staff is able to do it kind of on a sector level, meaning like restaurant, retail, energy, things like that. But even in executive session, we're unable to share metrics specific to specific businesses. And that's just pursuant to state law. So at a staff level, we're able to see what exact businesses are doing, but we're unable to even share that with the city council, which is unique but factual. So you see that we're budgeting a modest increase of just shy of 4% as compared to projected ending for this year, and hopefully we're able to accomplish that goal.
James, if I can can I ask this though? Are you able to, can we look at the trend? Like what industry is
Yes, we
trending?
can do that. We just,
Okay.
the tool that we use to analyze the detailed Excel sheets that come out, it
Sure.
also lags a little bit even beyond the report that comes out from the state.
Okay.
Because we just get
Okay.
the raw, basically lump sum numbers through the comptroller,
Okay.
and then we get access to the data via our tool.
Okay.
And so it takes a little bit of time. But
Sure. Okay.
generally, I know, like last we looked, retail restaurants seem to be doing well. Fast food QSR was doing really well.
Okay.
I think groceries may have been declining a little bit, things like that. There's no sales
Okay.
tax on certain groceries, but others there are. So we can
Okay.
give you some level of trend analysis.
Okay, I just was wondering, is this kind of an anomaly? Was it, back to school? Was it, into summer? Is, folks coming from out of town? Is this something we can expect to continue to, trend upward? So
Certainly.
just wanting to know kind of what.
Yeah, so based on the
what
sales of the
trend is.
entity, June's a quarterly payable month. So certain businesses only pay quarterly, others pay annually, and some pay monthly. So you get the benefit in those quarter marks, if you will, of the quarterly
I
payers.
gotcha.
However, when we're comparing month to month, that same thing existed in 2023. So we're comparing apples to apples, but generally the ones that fall in the quarters, you're going to see a little uptick. That's why it's important to do the month over month
I gotcha.
review.
Okay.
You can see that our people are what deliver the services. You see that there's 68% of the expenditures for the general fund, followed by services, supplies, maintenance, utilities. But we do have employee services accounting for almost $10.5 million of expenditures from the general fund. Taking a look at that in a little bit greater detail, you see kind of the trend here over the last 10 years of how many employees we have here at the city and the cost of those employees. So I think the cost, I averaged it out, was about $62,000 on the lowest year per head, up to around $84,000 the highest year. The most notable trend and increase was between FY22 and 23. You see about a $1.2 million increase. That was the result of implementing the PayPoint study. That was an independent study commissioned by the city and acted upon by the city council to make sure that our pay was consistent with competitors in the region for similar job descriptions. You do see an increase again this year. We'll talk a little bit about that on a future slide. So on the general fund side, we're going to talk about some of the larger projects. Again, I mentioned that this budget was more about continued major reinvestment, long-term, not about a lot of operational change. Not a lot of positions being added, not a lot of immediate satisfaction or gratification from this budget, but long-term reinvestment in infrastructure and a little bit of equipment. But you see that we're transferring from the general fund $400,000 to our vehicle and equipment replacement fund. That was started by the council last year. We're trying to get in a position where we can cash pay and budget according to depreciation for the fleet that we have on the general fund side of the house. Our enterprise funds, our utility funds, they're in a separate boat based on accounting law and those types of things. But we're just trying to get to where we can cash pay and maintain our fleet. We're in a good position in terms of the quality of the fleet we have now. We just don't want to get in a position where we swing back to where we were a few years ago, where we were, kind of embarrassed with the condition of the fleet, and we had a lot of downtime and investment in maintenance. You do see continued investment in our employees' travel and education. You see continued efforts for demolishing structures throughout town. We've had a really good practice of doing that the last 3 or so years, demolished dozens and dozens of properties. And that $100,000 you see on the slide there does include $50,000 of JEDCO support, which I believe we received the last couple of years. So we appreciate their partnership in that. $65,000 for maintenance of alleys, streets, sidewalks, culverts. That's in the general fund only. The utility fund has some funding for those things too. When our water and wastewater crews go out and make utility cuts, to improve underground infrastructure. They pay to put the road back for us. You see maintenance of parks at $50,000 in the general fund. We're continuing to maintain our IT investment and investing in the library. Let's look at our debt service fund. So we'll be talking a little bit more about this as we go. You'll actually be asked to call a special meeting to finalize the issuance of some debt related to some fire apparatus and Highway 175 utilities. What this chart shows is that on the utility supported side of the equation, we have debt until 2054. You see the short duration, we still have debt service from the hotel occupancy fund for the renovation we did at the Jackson. And you see the next time the debt falls off and gives us a little gap to consider a new issuance would be 2030. So between now and 2030, we're cash paying and just using revenues to offset expenditures. On the general fund capital side, we transferred another $100,000 to the VERF. Again, this fund was just started last year, so we're trying to seed it well, because when you have big high dollar pieces of equipment come due in future years, we got to be a little bit out ahead of that. You see, in the grand schemes of a renovation, $188,000 is not a lot, but we want to do some investment to Fire Station 2. Again, a nominal investment in our public and community services building for a new garage that was built a few years ago, a retaining wall bolstering project, Canada Street Improvement Project. That's a big one for the city. That's going to improve Canada between 69 and South Bolton. We got $523,000 of bond-funded street improvement projects. We have $664,000 going over to the Highway 175 utility relocation project. That's a $1.8 million as estimated project. We're continuing to explore opportunities to partner with the Library Association. They're independent of the city, and they've offered $100,000 toward exterior improvements at the library. We have $82,500 remaining to pair with that to explore that project. As Ms. Brierly mentioned, we do kind of have the Hazel Tilton project on the back burner right now. I anticipate bringing something before council before the end of the calendar year, after we get the boating access grant up and running, to revisit that project. Lincoln Park, there's $9,900 in the general fund capital projects, but in the grant fund, you see the fruits of the TPWD grant, which bring in over $300,000. And then the lake campground improvements, $65,000. That's for the huts, specific to kind of that gated RV park area. On the VERF, you saw we talked about how we're going to put some more funds over there. We're not necessarily exhausting all the funds that we're seeding it with this budget year. We have the purchase of 3 police Tahoe, what would be considered like pursuit vehicles, and their associated upfitting. We do have a power load cart for one of our ambulances. We have 4 of these, so we'll seek to replace 1 a year. What we don't want to do is have too heavy of a weight in 1 year. We want to try to spread things out as appropriate. So these are the cots that basically help lift somebody to get them in the back of the ambulance. We have a trailer to reduce on-road mileage for one of our larger Parks Department mowers. And then you see that we anticipate ending the budget year we're talking about with a fund balance of $1.297 million in the VERF. So starting to trend toward a good number to where we can stay on that cash pay side of the equation. General fund continued investment, grant fund continued investment. We do have some employees via the COPS grant and the clicker ticket grant in the police department that we received some grant funding for, just under $45,000 there. Continuing to leverage grant funding to train paramedics. So, generally we seek to hire paramedics. It doesn't always go that way. So a lot of times we'll hire a firefighter EMT and then put them through paramedic school, leveraging one of these grants. The investment in Lincoln Park that's been previously mentioned, and then the Lake Jacksonville Boating Access Improvement Project anticipated to kick off this October. So our special revenue funds, consisting of tourism, court, police, and war memorial, collectively these are fairly small funds with the exception of the HOT. With the 9% total tax rate coming to us locally now, 7% venue and 2% HOT, we're starting to see revenues in that fund accumulate. However, we have a lot of expenses in the operation of the Jackson. So things are tight in these funds, but we did budget a modest increase in sales tax revenue to the tourism fund at shy of 1%. So just being careful on how we operate the facility. Over to the enterprise funds, the water and wastewater. This is where we kind of transition from taxpayers to ratepayers, because we do have this fund is ideally gonna run on its own based on revenues from ratepayers. As Ms. Briley mentioned, you know, we're lagging this year. It was an unseasonably wet start to our summer and even wet spring. So certainly people have been watering their lawns less. I think household budgets are a little tighter than we've seen in the last few years as well. So even if you needed to water, you may be a little bit more mindful of your consumption. So we are seeing reduced revenues in water usage, which plays into the wastewater revenues as well. But on the revenue side, we got 8.08 million coming in for expansion of our sanitary sewer plant. That's Double Creek down State Highway 204. We have some revenue we'll be talking about later this evening for sewer improvements from CDBG funds of $500,000. We're continuing to seek grants. You just have to have a lot of patience with grant projects. ARPA, we've assigned $556,000 to the $1.8 million US 175 project that I mentioned. And then you see the issuance of the, the last bullet point there, to 2024B, those are for the sewer plant, and the $8 million is for a sewer trunk line expansion we've been talking about that will cross Bolton, generally from the lake to Nichols Green. On the expense side, you see some of the things we're reinvesting in. We have a lift station and sewer project over in the area of Sunnydale Street. We have the Nichols Green trunk line, a new Vector truck that's kind of what keeps the sewer system running. It's our emergency response vehicle, if you will. And then we have some investments at the sanitary sewer plant. Transitioning to kind of our people, compensation update wise, we did ask the council to consider a one-time $1,250 lump sum payment to our full-time employees and a $500 payment to our part-time employees. This would be one time, so as you see on the proposed slide there, we have a baseline budget between all funds for personnel of $11.6 million. This would bump that up, costing the city about $277,000 in a one-time fashion. Then we would basically return to the 2024 baseline. And so moving into the next year, if there was a flat percentage increase or some other style of compensation adjustment, we'd be working off the 11.6 and not the 11.9. This also plays in starting rates and midpoints and things in our compensation structure. We do recommend distribution in October, meaning the start of the fiscal year. I assume that most of our employees have some level of debt, and issuing this money on the front end may help them maximize it by working through debt and other payments and deferred maintenance that they may have. It does equate to about 2% increase if it were applied to cities, all employees at a 2% rate. But between the salary ranges we have here at the city to the individual employees, it ranges from about a little less than 1% or 1% to 4%. In these tough times, it does recognize the equal importance of all of our employees. It takes every one of us. We wish we could add several dozen more between police and fire and even administration and public works and streets. But I think this is a good attempt to try to value all of our employees in this time. And I appreciate our leadership team for making this recommendation. And again, lastly, and very importantly in this kind of unprecedented time, it provides some budget stability as we think toward FY26. Benefits on the healthcare side, you see on the far left-hand side of the screen there, those are the totals, the 10, 2, 6, 13, and 7. Those are the number of employees on those prospective plans. But we did initially receive a prediction, if you will, or an estimate that our healthcare costs were going to go up 19.3%. We've had some unfortunate claims, and certainly think a lot about those people that those claims have been associated with. But thanks to the work of Renissa and our broker Higginbotham, they were able to get that down to 7.5%. But you know, any increase, it hits the pocketbook and it hits the checks of our employees. So you see a range from, depending on the plan, of down $19 per month to up $190 per month for our employees. But the city offsets the cost of health insurance for every employee at $509.94 per month. So that is the cost of the employee-only plan, and then we apply that same amount to the employee spouse, employee child, and employee family, just to make sure that the cost to the city is the same, and then should the employee choose to be on one of those different plans, then they absorb the delta.
And James, there's a little bit of a typo on that one. Employee only, or unless there was one on our sheet that we looked at Friday, employee only, I think there's 102 employees.
Thank you so much.
10, okay.
Yeah, I don't know how that got transposed.
I think
Thank you.
it just
Yep.
shifted.
So the bulk of the employees are on the employee only, so they won't recognize a change. Thank you for that clarification. So here's what the rest of the budget process looks like. Of course, council, you spent the better part of your morning last Thursday receiving a little bit of an extended version of this presentation. August 13th is where we sit tonight, and you're asked via item 11 on the agenda to set the tax ceiling, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a second. August 20th, which is a subsequent item on this evening's agenda, you'll be asked to come for a special meeting here at 6 p.m. At City Hall for the finalization of the issuance of the 2024A certificates of obligation via the passage of an ordinance. John Martin of Hilltop Securities will be here to provide the actual bids for that debt. And September 10th, which is our regular city council meeting in September, would be public hearing on the tax rate and the budget. So this is somewhat confusing, and I want to try to make this extremely clear and transparent. You know, the action this evening requires a roll call vote, and it is to set the tax ceiling. And so, as would be the best practice, and as we've historically done, we would ask the council to adopt a rate much closer to the voter approval rate this evening, just to set the ceiling in case there are any unexpected curveballs that come our way between now and the September meeting. If the council should choose to tonight set the ceiling at the 63,763, there is no changes. I mean, we can cut things and we can swap, but the $83,000 is essentially locked in as estimated based on the levy and collection rate. If we set the voter approval rate and something, you know, God forbid, would break or change between now and the September meeting, we would be able to come back to council, potentially ask for you to consider the higher tax rate based on some unknown to us need currently. But we have full intention and every intention of seeking your approval of the 63,763 rate in September along with this budget.
Okay. So, we will go to, continue item number 11, discuss and consider action about the tax rate. So I will entertain a motion to set the ceiling on the proposed tax rate for this upcoming year.
Mayor, I make a motion to propose a tax rate ceiling of 0.66445 and set September 10th, 2024 at 6 p.m. as the date and time to hold a public hearing on the proposed tax rate and budget.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilwoman Mindy Gallick.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
We have a second.
Second.
Second by Councilman Rob Goen. Any discussion? If not, this is a roll call. So Rob Goen, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Okay. Councilman McRae.
Yay.
Mayor Randy Gorham, yay. Councilman Latitia Horace.
Yes.
And Councilwoman Mindy Gallick.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, very good. That passes 5-0. Thank you. Item number 12 is to discuss and consider calling a special city council meeting for August the 20th, 2024 at 5:15 for the presentation regarding TMRS benefits. Do we need these two different motions?
You could, you could do it as two different motions.
Okay, so I will, there's really no discussion on that.
It's really pretty
Okay,
straightforward, but
okay.
we've asked one of the, probably the most notable representatives of TMRS, employees of TMRS rather. TMRS is the Texas Municipal Retirement System. That is the benefit that our employees, full-time employees have in terms of a kind of a statewide retirement system. And we've asked them to come out and just brief the council. As discussed in our budget session, there's one lever we're asking you to pull related to a non-repeating COLA, which saves the city money, about $51,000 this year and every year thereon after. So just want to make sure that you have full understanding of that. That TMRS representative is going to actually come out at 4 to visit independently with our staff, and then would present kind of an overview of our whole plan design as well as that particular option at 5:15 that evening. I believe he'll be traveling here from Austin. And then that evening at 6 o'clock in the council chambers, again, you'd have John Martin of Hilltop Securities related to the issuance, finalization of the certificates of obligation. Council did approve notice of intent to issue those at the June 11th meeting, and you see the apparatus there representatively that we would be purchasing. There would be on the top the pumper truck for roughly $1 million, and below an aerial platform style ladder truck for closer to $2 million. I believe the pumper's expected to be here in September before. The ladder truck, we're looking at about 24 to 36, potentially even more months out to get that coming here. So anyway, we would have a net result and revenue of about 4.1 due to this debt issuance. We would purchase these two pieces of apparatus. We've committed about $565, I think, to the 175 utility project, and then we'd have a remaining balance of about 475 to commit to other efforts down the line.
Good. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the special city council meeting for August 20th, 2024 at 5:15.
Mayor, I make a motion, we have a special city council meeting on August 20th at 5:15 PM for a presentation regarding TMRS benefits.
All right, we have a motion by Councilwoman Mindy Gallick,
Second.
second by Councilman Tim McRae. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. And then item B is to, I will entertain a motion regarding the special city council meeting for August 20th, again at 6 PM for the consideration of the issuance of the COs.
Mayor, I make,
Go.
okay,
If it's
Mayor, I
amended.
make a motion that we, have a special city council meeting for August 20th at 6 PM for consideration of issuance of certificates of obligation.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Letitia Horse,
Second.
second by Councilwoman Mindy Gallick. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, those motions carry. Item number 13 is to discuss and consider action approving the 2024-2025 Jacksonville Economic Development Corporation budget as presented by Shane Pace.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I know you just received a very long budget presentation, so
Keep
out of
yours
respect,
short.
out of your respect for your time, we only have one slide this evening. For the public, we did present this information to the city council at their workshop last week on Friday. So just want to let the public know that they've received in more detail this information. But just kind of set you up for where we are today. You did receive, let me back up. The JEDCO Board of Directors did review this on June 20th. That was their first draft review. They provided some feedback, and we went back and made some changes based on that feedback. On July 18th, they received a revised version of that budget, and they did unanimously approve that on August 9th. The City Council received this during their budget workshop, and here we are on August the 13th, seeking City Council approval of the budget this evening. So what you see on the slide here is a summary table of all of the individual categories. So I'll run through this as quickly as I can. Just looking at our beginning cash balance, we show about a 7% reduction. That is just really more of a modification of the methodology that we utilized to more accurately represent the cash balance that we have on hand. Councilwoman Horace had asked some questions at the budget workshop on how we arrived at that number. I believe I clarified that. Really what it is just really the cash that we have available in our bank accounts, if you will, and the cash that we have available in investments. There are some receivables and things like that in our budget that would bring that number to about $5.6 million. But I wanted to be more transparent on the cash that we had available today if need be. Sales tax, we're leaving that number flat at the $1.769 million. As Ms. Briley just said a few moments ago, I believe we're going to be pretty close to that number based on the collections that we've received. My estimate was about 1.6, but with the June collections, I think we're going to be in good shape. Interest income is significantly outperforming what we had budgeted the prior year. When we budgeted the FY24 budget, no one really anticipated that the interest rates were going to stay as high as they have. There was hope that the rates would come down. The good news for JEDCO is that those rates have remained high. We've locked in, our board did a really good job of laddering our cash into investments so that we made sure that we maintain those returns on a consistent basis over time. So we're budgeting 100% increase at about $250,000. And based on the collections we've received month over month, we should be on track to hit that next year. Lease income, there's a slight decrease there of about $40,000. That's really primarily attributed to the deferral of some of the funds for the Jackson from the city, and so that will something we will basically realize in the future. Overall, total revenue of about $2.12 million. That's a 4% increase year over year, so we're still trending in the right direction. Moving on to the expenses in the second middle category there. The main changes that you see here, administrative and operating expenses, there's been about a $50,000 increase year over year. That's primarily attributed to increase in benefits, insurance, things like that, as well as the addition of an administrative assistant. As we talked about at the meeting, one of the things that the board is focused on is making sure that we're doing everything that we can to serve the businesses we have, but also recruit new businesses here, new industry here. As the city manager noted in his presentation, we have had a few closures this year, and so we need to do everything that we can to support not only the brokers who are out there trying to bring new business, but get out there and let people know that Jacksonville's here, explain to them the benefits that we have to offer, and try to recruit new business to the community. So that administrative assistant will allow me to do more of that. It will also allow Sherry to do more workforce development type work and our business retention efforts to kind of get out there and meet with businesses and make sure that they're being served to the best of our ability. Other than that, legal and professional services, a slight increase there of about 12%. Jedco-owned property expenses, that remained flat. One thing that I will note just for the community who's watching today, that $55,000 does include about $50,000 for the maintenance of the properties that we own, one of those being the golf course property, making sure that we're maintaining the drive accesses there, and anything that we need to do over the course of the period of ownership of that. Advertising, travel, training, and promotions, there's an increase there. We did increase the travel budget by about $10,000 based on board direction, just to allow us opportunities to go meet with individual entities and continue our efforts that we've had ongoing with our regional group over the past few years that has been successful. So overall, we're about 13% up on that at $555,700. And again, I've explained what those increases are attributed to. Our committed projects, that's probably, moving on to the next section, our largest increase there. You see $875,000 versus $200,000 the year before. That's really attributed to projects that we have on deck. So we've had a lot of things happen this year, a lot of things that we've committed to. So you've seen an uptick there. We've continued the Louvet project, the $125,000. This year we've moved that forward as well because they have not started construction. But in this upcoming fiscal year, we anticipate the Brawley's Ace Hardware incentive package that was approved, as well as the incentive package for the redevelopment of the Tradewinds property, as well as those properties along Natchez Street. We have acquired the Encore building, so we've allocated $200,000 for demolition of that building and construction of a parking lot, as well as some debt service assistance that Jedco has provided to the city for the Jackson. So that's what that $875,000 is attributed to. We've maintained our workforce development at $20,000. As I mentioned in the workshop, as we bring on someone new and give Sherry a little bit more opportunity to work on that, that number may move, but we do have some flexibility to increase that if need be. One of the things that I think is pretty cool that we're doing, Sherry actually brought it to me, and moving forward with it, is a management training program. It's a 6-month period, and basically I think we've had 4 industries and 6 individuals that have signed up, so we're basically offering a grant to them to bring in folks who have been promoted within, to go through a 6-month training to basically give them the management skills that they need. Oftentimes when you have a great employee who's performing on the floor, you move them into a management position. If they don't have the adequate training, then they're not going to be successful. So we wanted to partner with them and do that. So that's just one of the things that Sherry's done, since we've kind of given her a little bit more leash on that. Moving on to community development and our infrastructure, we've kept those grants at the $500,000 each, so there's $1 million allocated there. We've had a lot of success this year with our Parks and Recreation grant. We've had infrastructure. We've allocated a $75,000 grant for a new residential project, but we still have money that's available there. And our matching grants, so we've continued that as well, that $400,000. And we all know what those are, the facade grant, the demolition grant, and our downtown redevelopment grant. All of those have been very successful, and we want to make sure that we continue those moving forward. And then finally, our future projects. We made a reduction in that to $1.5 million. Really, that's just it's a placeholder for any large project that may fall, come our way, making sure that we have that money in play so that it expedites the process. Because one of the things, and James and I talk with developers all the time, and they tell us these stories about how long it takes to get something done. If we have the funds in play, it doesn't require us to be able to make a budget amendment. We can start moving that forward. Obviously, anything over 10,000 still comes to city council, but we're already in a position to make that move if we need to do that. So we want to just keep that moving forward as a contingency should a great opportunity arise. So overall, total projects and total economic development projects is about a 5% increase. Total budget is at 4.35, and that's about a 6% year over year. Most of that is attributed to the projects that we've awarded this year, as well as our ongoing support for our community development infrastructure and our matching grant programs. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you.
Short and sweet.
Thank you.
Sweet.
Very good. So we've heard Jedco's budget. I will entertain a motion to approve that budget for 24-25.
I'll make the motion that we approve the 24-25 JCO budget.
We have a motion by Councilman Rob Goen.
Second.
Second by Mayor Pro Tem Tim McRae. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Item number 14, discuss and consider with possible action approving a contract for grant administration services for the sewer main replacement grant project.
Yes, Mayor, City Council have combined this into one slide, but I do believe we need to take action independently. But let me see here, at the April 2023 meeting, you did authorize staff to seek this grant or pursue this grant. It was a $500,000 grant. This is very similar to actually the grant structure utilized to do the initial phase of the downtown sidewalk projects. $500,000 CDBG, required $75,000 city match. And so tonight's award would be to Trailer and Associates for the grant management side as required, and to Stokes and Associates for the design. And you see the respective not to exceed amounts for items 14 and 15, and the respective project kind of boundaries. Sycamore Street, north of Sunset, south of 79, generally on the west side of town, and then an enhancement to a line stemming from kind of the eastern side of Nichols Green, Phase 1, I believe that is. Hope I didn't get that wrong, kind of the northern half of the park, stemming towards 768 or Corinth Road, south of the high school there. So those are the two projects that would be designed, Sycamore being probably the easier of the two, and then the Nichols Green to solve some I&I struggles we're having over in that area.
Okay. All right, so I'll entertain a motion on the grant administration
Yes.
piece of it. Item 14.
I'll make a motion that we approve the contract for grant administrator services. You want two?
No, just that one, and then we'll get to think, yeah, just that one, right?
On Sycamore and 79 generally.
Okay. We have a motion by Councilman Rob Goen,
Second.
second by Councilwoman Mindy Gallick. Any discussion?
I do.
Okay.
I am so sorry. This project is just not ringing a bell for me at all.
Well, it was approved by council in April 2023 for us to
Okay.
pursue it. Then
And I don't doubt it.
Sure.
It's just not ringing a bell for me at all.
yeah, there's just some known areas of sewer challenges in the city. And
Okay.
so we saw the grant, and I think Renissa and Randall and his team kind of teamed up and pursued the money.
Okay,
And so it is in the budget as I just stepped through on
Uh-huh.
the expense side of the utility fund,
okay.
with the $75,000 city match.
And the
Okay.
Corinth and 768, that's gonna tie in with the work that we're gonna do on 10th Street?
That big
Yes, the
trunk?
big
The
trunk
big-
line coming across.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is just to go in and repair the city side of the sewer?
Existing sewer lines, yes,
Existing.
sanitary sewer.
Okay,
Correct.
On Sycamore.
It's these grant projects, that's kind of seems to be the nature. You apply, and then by the
Yeah.
time you get the award, then you have several subsequent steps to take. So, and a lot of times, there's not a lot of substantive updates in between those times.
okay. And you mentioned I&I?
That's infill and infiltration. It's basically where you have damaged sewer lines, and they're taking on groundwater during rainfall events.
Okay.
So the manhole broke. That's what that's about.
Okay, okay. All right.
Okay?
Thank you for that clarification.
Yes. So we do have a motion and a second. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that one carries. then I will entertain a motion for approving the contract for engineering for the sewer main replacement grant project that we just heard about also.
Mayor, I make a motion, we approve a contract for engineering for the sewer main replacement grant project at
Okay,
Nickel Green.
we have a motion by Councilwoman Mindy Gallick,
I'll second.
second by Councilman Rob Goen. Any discussion there?
I will say
And
April
look-
of '23, I wasn't on.
And
There you
let-
go.
Yeah, that's
let me
fine.
tell you-
All
let me
right,
tell you-
all right.
Hold on.
All right, I
And
just,
to put it in perspective,
yeah.
it's been 15 months since
Yeah.
we.
Okay, all right, well, no, I don't feel so bad
No,
now.
no,
When
I'm
you
sorry.
said that, I was just
Yeah.
like,
And we-
wait a minute.
And
I
15 months
wasn't
later,
here.
Yeah.
Okay,
none of
all
this,
right.
none of this hired anybody to turn dirt.
Right,
Yeah.
right, all right. So,
Okay.
so we did get a motion and a second on that one. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries.
I'm like, man, I've slept, but not that hard.
Yeah. Item number 16, discuss and consider possible action on a contract with Schamberger and Pope for bidding inspection services Highway 175 utilities.
Perfect. This is kind of a follow-up to an award made at the October 10th, 2023 meeting for a $111,000 professional services agreement with SPI for the engineering design services for our utility relocates necessitated by the State Highway 175 TxDOT expansion project, which is currently kind of in the area of Frankston and CUNY, quickly working our way. In July of 2024, SPI did submit plans to TxDOT for review, and we anticipate them being approved really any day now. With construction on that project, the city's portion of the utility relocation is expected to start in early 2025, out ahead of the expected completion of the TxDOT project, which is June of 2028. But before you this evening is a professional services agreement with SPI for an amount not to exceed $82,500. This is for bidding, procurement, and construction phase services. Many times we will lump all those services into one professional services agreement. However, at the time of awarding the design to SPI, we were very unsure of when construction timelines were going to be, and they were hesitant to lock in some of these costs due to the increasing costs and inflation related to personnel. So we chose to basically do an engineering-only agreement back in 2023. And again, before you this evening is for their assistance related to the bidding of the project, meaning the advertisement, the selection of a qualified contractor, vetting those contractors, and then 10 hours of weekly on-site representation, which, to say that another way, is construction inspection services, very critical to the integrity of the project during and throughout the expected 6-month project. So just have a billable rate for that.
Okay. All right, so I'll entertain a motion on that contract.
I'll make a motion that we take action on a contract with Schaumburg and Polk for bidding inspection services on Highway 175 utilities.
We have a motion by Councilman Rob Goen on that.
Second.
Second by Mayor Pro Tem Tim McRae. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. We
We'll
took
go
care
back
of.
to being the fun councilman.
Yeah, that's right.
We have parties and we do stuff, and now I'm voting on sewer lines.
We took care of 17 earlier, so now we're at the open forum, mayor and council. Anybody have anything they want to talk about? All right. Hearing none, we'll go to the city manager's report.
Yeah, I will make this brief for you, but we just want to, I guess, congratulate, I don't know what you say, but a lot of first day of school for kids today, so we have a great partnership with GISD, both in how our police serve in some of their campuses occasionally, and just how we work with them through a myriad of different issues throughout town, so kudos to them for what seemed like a great start to the school year, attended convocation. I know Councilwoman Horace's son played a big role in that, and it was really an inspiring kickoff to the school year. As previously mentioned, don't want to belabor it, but October 1 or October-ish is when we expect to see some substantive construction activity out at the Boating Access Grant. It's a 240 calendar day contract, but that can always be extended given certain weather anomalies. But look to try to get that project wrapped up around the Memorial Day 2025 timeline. We've been underway with some additional black vulture mitigation efforts the last week and again this week, utilizing state and USDA services who have the depredation permits. Sometimes it's a lesson in futility, it seems. They just keep coming. We have learned some things throughout this process, that will be taken additional measures toward in the future. We did see last month the demolition and the cleanup of the former Alberta Street Primary School site on MLK. You know, it's sometimes hard to see properties transition that you have fond memories of, but our ZBA board did a phenomenal job of working with the property owner representative in respect and just making, I think, what was a really good decision for the neighborhood. This was funded by the city, and there'll be a lien placed on the property, but we hope to procure additional quality development there at some point on that roughly 4 acres. Here's some of the roads that are under construction. I know I was asked about this a little bit earlier this evening, but this project is currently underway, expected to be complete this fall, but these are the different sections of pavement that are currently undergoing some form of road rehabilitation project. It's not a full depth reclamation, it's more of a surface targeted base repairs and then surface level treatment beyond that to extend the life of the pavement. You see there, I think, the intersection of Lopper and Burma. That's a new kind of valley gutter they poured at the corner where you have the turning movements and the drainage. And you see the crack ceiling on the left side of the screen, and more of that to come on all those segments of roadway. That was about a $794,000 project awarded a couple months ago by the City Council. How's it?
Okay,
Talking fast.
very good. Well, we'll stand adjourned.